So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone XS versus iPhone XS Max versus iPhone XR. Which is the best one to buy? That's the aim of this video, to decide which one are you going to go with here. The XR being the latest one that just released of all three of these. I've been waiting to do this comparison since I knew these phones were coming, as I knew it was going to be confusing this year. Now I want to let you know right away, this review is going to be pretty subjective, my own experience, my own opinion. So just letting you know that right away. Okay, so let's talk about the price to get things started. For the iPhone XS, is going to run you $999 to start, and the price goes up from there. So that's a $1,000 phone. The iPhone XS Max is going to run you about $1,099 to start. So that's over $1,000 to start. And in some countries, it's even more than that for all of these iPhones. The iPhone XR being the cheapest here starts at $750, and that's significantly less than these two premium iPhones. And it goes up from there. The sweet spot probably being that $799 128 gigabyte model. Okay, so in terms of key specs, iPhone XS gives you 5.8-inch OLED screen, 12 megapixel dual camera up to 4K 60 on the rear, 4 gigabytes of RAM, Apple A12 Bionic, and a 2658 milliamp hour battery. The iPhone XS Max takes it up to a 6.5-inch OLED screen, 12 megapixel dual 4K 60p camera on the rear, 4 gigabytes of RAM, Apple A12 Bionic, and a 3174 milliamp hour battery, so the largest of the bunch. Over here on the XR, you do have an LCD 6.1-inch screen, 12 megapixel single camera with a 4K 60p video capability. You have 3 gigabytes of RAM and a 2942 milliamp hour battery. They all have a similar camera, actually the same primary camera. It's just these two have a secondary lens for telephoto zooming as well as object detection in portrait. This one doesn't give you 3D touch like these guys do, so you're going to notice that right away. IP68 on both of these, only IP67 over here, so these are a little more water and dust resistant, and I find that the off-axis viewing on the screens of the XS and XS Max is better than the little bit washed out when on the sharpest angles of the iPhone XR. So those are basically the main differences between all three of these when it comes to the key specs. If you really want the juicier screen, you want the iPhone XS and XS Max. If you can live without it, this offers like 90% of what these phones offer. Okay, so let's talk about the build and the feel in the hand. Now, all three of these are extremely premium, and this one has aluminum sides, whereas these two do give you stainless steel sides. That's basically the only difference when it comes to the build quality. Now, a lot of people do like aluminum over stainless steel, so I'm basically calling the build quality equal on all three, but you can say that the XS and XS Max stainless steel is a little bit more premium. To me, it's really a personal preference. They all feel premium. Now, the XS is the most ergonomic, easy one to use in the hand. The iPhone XS Max for me has been the hardest to use. One hand, I almost dropped it a couple times, and you need two hands for this one. There's no split screen, so it doesn't really take advantage of its size, and the sweet spot really is the iPhone XR. This one feels closer to the Max than the smaller one, but still not so large that it's unmanageable. It reminds me of like the OnePlus 6, for example, that size frame. It's a really good size, and I think that most people will enjoy this form factor over this one being a little bit too small and narrow maybe for some on the iPhone XS, and this one being just a little bit too large. So for me, the iPhone XR hits the sweet spot when it comes to the feel in the hand, but these two right here are definitely the most premium feeling, with the XS Max being the one that feels like you paid the most for it. Okay, so let me talk about my feelings with displays. Now, let's just be honest. The iPhone XR is out of here when it comes to these two. These are the better displays. I just got to be honest with you. Now, the XR, though, as its own, as it stands on its own, is a pretty nice display. It doesn't show through camera that well in these bright lights that it's not as high resolution, but the iPhone XS is a much higher resolution, and it's definitely seen when you are reading text in that, you know, like in a news app, for example, and you could see that the bezels are much thicker for the XR. Will this bother most people? Probably not, but I'm giving you my take on display, and in order like this, I think the XS Max has the best display, has the most pixels, the largest, the most beautiful here of all three. Then I would have the XS next, and then the XR. So it goes like this: XS Max, XS, XR. Now, the display on the XR doesn't give you 3D touch, which is not really a problem because it has this nice haptic feedback, and I don't think most people use 3D touch daily anyway. But if you did, you will be missing your 3D touch. Okay, so let's talk about the software between all three of these. We don't got to talk much about it. It is iOS 12.1 on all of them, and it's not really different on any. The only difference is the camera gives you 2x zoom on these guys and 3D touch for the 10s series. That's all that is really different here in the software. You don't see any other difference. So whichever one you buy, you know you're getting iOS and you know you're getting a smooth experience. So yes, software is pretty good. They're all going to be updated for quite some time. Okay, so let's talk about my performance thoughts. All three of them perform the same. I haven't seen any difference on any of them in terms of everyday performance. 7nm chips, A12 Bionics on all of them. They're all built to last and they're all very fast. 3 GB of RAM doesn't really matter. We've seen 8 plus, 7 plus before with 3 gigs of RAM. We've seen the iPhone 10 with 3 gigs of RAM and it showed no signs of slowdown. So none of these do either. So anyone that you do go with, you're going to be very happy when it comes to the performance. So there's nothing really to speak up there. They all have an upgraded GPU, and yes, the 10R games just as well as these phones, and they all stay pretty cool under that performance. Okay, so when it comes to their cameras, the only real difference between these two is that the Max does give you the 2x zoom, so does the small 10s, and that's about it. They basically have the same cameras in here, and portrait mode is a little bit different for the iPhone 10R. You can go ahead now on iOS 12.1 and change the depth before the fact. Let's go over into portrait mode here for this device on the camera, and you could change the depth before the fact up here in the F sign, but you can't do it without a person. You can do portrait mode on these phones without a person. You could use any type of object or stuff like that. So, you know, serious photographers are still going to want the 10s and 10s Max, but you can still get some serious photography done on the iPhone 10R. But if you want every bell and whistle, you want these two right here. It just gives you a little bit more. I don't know if it's enough to justify the cost extra over these, but it does give you a little bit more. Take a look at these photo samples of the devices. They all have the same camera, so I'm just going to be showing single photos, and let me know your thoughts on them. So which one to buy in terms of audio? The iPhone XS Max has sound the loudest of all of these to me. The XS is about the same as well as the XS Max, but the XR is a little bit lower in my experience, but still very loud speakers. So I would not make my decision based on, you know, speaker performance audio. None of them do give you headphone jacks, and none of them will give you a dongle in the box for plugging in a 3.5. So you have to buy a dongle with all of these. You might want to have wireless headphones if you're picking up one of these phones. Okay, so in terms of battery life, this area actually has a clear winner. The iPhone XR is the best battery life I've seen of all three of these. It makes sense, lower resolution screen. The XS Max is right on its heels, and this one is significantly less, about like 35, 45 minutes to an hour less than both of these, maybe almost 2 hours less than the iPhone XR in my experience. So the XS, you don't want this for battery life. If you want battery champs, you got to decide between the Max or the XR. Okay, so phone calls and connectivity. At first, the XS and XS Max had some issues. It's been fixed in the latest iOS updates, but I got to tell you, in my experience, for the first time in years, we have 3 iPhones that all perform good on phone calling. I haven't had any dropped calls for the XR. I did have one on the XS Max and one on the XS, but since the update, no drop calls since then. So these are all pretty competent phone callers if you do phone calls still. Okay, so here we are at the conclusion. You notice throughout this video, they all have similarities, but you might still be confused. Let's break it down. Let's make this simple. For the iPhone XS, this is probably the more boring phone of the 3 just because it looks like last year's, but it does have all the same technology as these two. If you like the 10 from last year, you didn't buy it and you still don't like these two being too big for you, or the XR, you just don't like that LCD screen. The XS is the small, compact, premium iPhone. If you want that, get the iPhone XS, you'll be happy. If you wanted a larger phone than the iPhone 10 last year, like I did, that's why the XS Max of these 3 is my pick. Get the iPhone XS Max, you'll be happy. If you want a large screen competitor to those Android phones that are really large, but you want it in that premium iPhone body, you're really gonna love the iPhone XS Max. It has the most pixels, the biggest battery of these three, and it's just the most technology Apple has made in a smartphone right there on the XS Max. Now, if you wanted to never pay $1,000 for a phone, the iPhone XR gets quite close to these two, and you'll be very happy and you'll feel like you got such a great value with this smartphone. Also, if you don't like those colors on the XS and XS Max, you have so much color choice for the XR. But the XR is going to be really for those people who didn't want to pay over $1,000, and those people who have an iPhone 6s, 7, they skipped out last year, and now they have another option. They might want to go with this guy. But I can tell you right now, if you're into tech and you pay attention to specifications like display, this one will disappoint you if you do pay attention to detail. So don't settle for the XR if you know you like really beautiful displays. You're really gonna want the XS or the XS Max. And that's it for me. If you guys found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, enjoying, do me a favor, click that like button for me. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more videos like this. Nick here helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well. I will catch you all in the next episode, and peace.